Modern technology.
Modern technology. Thank goodness it's all working. And I just said to Beth, this is the first time all week that we've been on time.
I
So
know.
huge thanks to Beth. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have Beth here with us tonight. What a huge honor. Beth is a twice Grammy nominated Nashville based artist. Beth has released 14 solo albums and written 7 number one hits and songs recorded by Bonnie Raitt, Willie Nelson, Bette Midler, Elton John, Neil Diamond, Michael McDonald, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Keb Mo, Roberta Flack. God, big breath
Oh
here,
my
Pete.
God. I
Wow.
had no idea.
Waylon Jennings, the Indigo Girls, Faith Hill's mega hit, This Kiss, excuse me. ASCAP's 1999 Song of the Year. Her songs have been featured in film and TV as an artist. Beth's work has been entirely diverse, from singing in 9 different languages on Prism, 2007, to Mighty Sky, 2012, a Grammy-nominated astronomy CD, for kids of
Astronomy.
all ages, in addition to her deeply moving body of work as a singer-songwriter. There have been collaborations with Olivia Newton-John and Amy Skye for their project Live On. And Beth is also a breast cancer survivor, an environmentalist, and considers herself a creativity midwife. Wow, Beth!
Or a creativity whisperer, one or the other. I haven't decided which one
Yes,
it
can
is.
you whisper in my ear, please? Wow.
Oh,
It's
you're doing pretty good.
incredible to read that and
Well,
hear
that was
that.
lovely to hear all that read out, but I didn't hear the Webb sisters on there, so I still have things I'm striving for.
Us too, us too. So, how does it feel sitting today and looking back at that extraordinary body of work? What do you feel when you hear all of these incredible contributions you've made to society, community, creativity?
It feels really surreal, actually, because you just keep moving forward, and then sometimes when you take a step back and you go, wow,
Wow.
it's pretty amazing, and it can cause you to lose your balance if you get too stuck in the past and you think, wow, and so I kind of tend to think when I'm in my 70s and 80s, I might do some rifling through all the pictures and videos and really enjoy it again. But right now, I can't get too caught up in last year because I got this one coming up. So I think
Yeah,
we're all
you've got
like that
one
as
coming up.
artists. We're all like that. We're on to the
Amazing.
next one.
And what's your new album called?
I don't have a name for it yet.
Okay.
I've named the tour that I'm doing in the UK in the fall called the All Around the World Tour, which is one of the songs on the album I wrote with Gordon Kennedy and Graham Gouldman, called All
Wow.
Around the World. I thought that was
Amazing.
a good name to name a tour, and I don't know yet if it's the name of the title of the album or not. But I've had so much fun making this record with Ray Kennedy, and we did it all live with a band just like 2 days before they shut us down
Wow.
for the pandemic. So we just finished mixing it.
Incredible. Congratulations. I can't wait to buy it and immerse
Me either.
myself. So exciting. It's been wonderful listening to your music to prepare for this because I've seen you live, I've bought your albums, I've loved your albums, and to really immerse myself in your catalogue over the years has been so wonderful. And what really strikes me is how your songwriting channels so many different truths of people's lives. Do you ever write for other people from a different perspective, or is there always something in your songwriting that comes rooted from in you and your experience?
Well, I really believe the greatest art that every human can put forth. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. I don't know if are you
Are
hearing
you
it? Yeah, I'm hearing an
not
echo when I
hearing it
talk.
here? Let us know, folks. Are you hearing an echo there?
Anyway, it's fine now. No, it's
Okay,
louder. That's
okay.
weird. Anyway, when I'm writing a song, I'm writing it from a totally selfish perspective, and I try to encourage my students to write from the heart of what you're experiencing yourself in the most truthful way that you can, so that you're
Yes.
giving someone something that nobody else can give them, which is your point of view, which is also, if you do it truthfully, automatically universal. because we are all struggling through similar basic emotions of going through life. And I've not really been a fan of the kind of we are the world sort of collective, I'm going to write a song to heal the world kind of thing. Although I know that song did very well. It's like, I wish I'd written it. But when I'm writing, even a song like Sand and Water, which I wrote after my husband died, that song has gone all over the world. It's still, every day I have emails from people saying, I just heard this song for the first time and I went through this loss and it helped me so much. And if I had known I was going to help that many people, it would have been amazing. But all I was doing was trying to help myself and trying to get
Wow.
myself through an experience. And I think it's enough to use that channel that we get to have to speak to put our voices into our truth and create art from that. That's enough. That's actually the most powerful thing I think each person can do. And a lot of times I'll start a workshop off. My first job is to imbue in the people that I'm working with the knowledge that they are actually the CEO of their own one and only point in the universe of all time. That's them, and that their voice is not like any other voice. It's like everything they've experienced through that one spot in time is incredibly valuable if it can be rendered truthfully. And that's why you can have some 16-year-old boy, writing a song in Chicago that's just hitting the nail on the head because he's doing that from that true energy. The energy of the truth is really powerful. And it doesn't
Wow.
have to be all important either. It doesn't even have to be, I'm going to be truthful. It's like, to me, I mean, sometimes I'll write a song and I'll be speaking through a different character, but I'm actually in the
Yes.
center of that song. The truth of the emotion is something that I understand and I'm working through a way to express. That's the
Wow.
short answer.
It's a wonderful answer. It makes so much sense. And that word truth, and to come back to that sense of authenticity and the root of the truth. You have inspired so many songwriters across the world, me included. And I'm always in awe of how you get to the heart of the matter in the song, but really often early in the song. Like, I feel like your intention is always very, very clear. In these series of discussions, we're leading up to International Women's Day, and speaking with different women has been a huge learning curve and so enriching. And I've learned so much this week from other women. Obviously, now and where you are, you're the godmama to so many creatives around the world. Can you share about some of the women who inspired you originally, and in what ways they inspired you personally or professionally or creatively?
Well, I mean, I think my earliest memories are just the sounds that they made, from Edie Gourmet on my parents' records to starting to discover, Ella Fitzgerald and their phrasing and the sound that they made and the way that they brought songs to life, whether they wrote them or whether they were singing them. And then
Yes.
when I went to, entered into high school and I got the ultimate Carole King record,
Oh,
Tapestry. It changed my life.
tapestry.
And I realized, and James Taylor and all those confessional, beautiful Joni Mitchell, all those singer-songwriters had a huge impact on me. At the same time, I was deeply resonating with, all of the records of Motown, and there were a lot of powerful women's voices in there. Of course, being a woman or being a female, I would identify with that perspective a lot. And it's I can't even begin. The list is so long.
Yeah.
Then I
It's
was,
it's a trick question. It's like asking someone what their favorite album is or favorite food. It
yeah,
can
yeah.
change on any given day, I'm sure.
And the other thing that's amazing too is that how many of the women who were making art and music back in the 50s and 60s and 70s are invisible and we will discover. So there's an artist named Julie Sills. I think it's Julie Sills. Do you know who I?
Yes.
She is
Yes.
sort of somewhat unknown, but I heard about her through Bob Harris, who is a
Yes.
musical, library, a walking musical library, the wonderful Bob Harris of BBC Radio too. Um,
It's a
and
treasure chest of songs and creativity. Wow.
and he has turned me on to so many artists that I didn't hear about because they didn't maybe break through on a larger scale. but I'm fascinated by those artists that will be, and again, I'm always talking about do your body of work, whether or not you have a hit, whether or not you have success. You are here for this period of time. You can do your body of work as an artist. If you're a breathing, living human being, you don't have to have permission. I'm giving you permission.
Mm.
I hand out permission slips, actually.
Oh,
Um,
can I get one,
you
please?
don't need one, but I'll be happy to frame
I'd
one
love
for you.
one.
So this permission that we seem to sometimes not know that we get to have automatically just because we're breathing, to discover the world through our all of our senses and then find our channel, whether it's songwriting or painting or child raising is even also an art form. There's just a million ways to transform your creativity into something that's illuminating to someone else, and that's how we all learn. That's like how we all learn. Museums are full of this stuff.
They're
And
full
this,
of this stuff. By the way, Beth, we have some incredible artists joining on our Instagram here. We have Pedro Segundo, who's a
oh, hello
wonderful
Pedro, and
percussionist,
then
songwriter,
Joseph Arthur. I
artist.
just saw Joseph Arthur go by. He's a brilliant musician and producer from South Africa. Pedro.
Yay!
Great.
And we have Joe Stilgo, who's an incredible artist and
Oh,
went to school with my sister, actually, and such an inspiring writer and
that's so
musician.
great. That's so
So,
great.
so cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would love to ask a bit about your initial time and years in the music industry, because for someone like me, you could look at you and think, Beth has always been at the top of her game doing these most incredible things. But there was a time when you were starting out, and I'd love to hear about how you felt starting out, why you started out, and what your step into the music industry was like.
Well, I got started really early, and I think I signed my very first contract when I was like 15, and my dad had to co-sign it, and I was
Wow.
sure that this person was going to make me a big star and all this stuff, and I was just writing like crazy, totally inspired that everything was going to be fine and perfect and just like streamlined. And just to really give you the cliff notes, and by the time I was just married in 1979, so it would have been like 20, 21. I got signed to Capitol Records, and I was doing my first album with Barry Beckett in Muscle Shoals Sound on a major label, and I ended up just in this I mean, these guys are all on a documentary now that played on my first album. It was an incredible learning curve, but there was a part of me that wasn't empowered within myself.
Yeah.
And as I look back on it, there were things that if I were doing that now, I would do differently. But I didn't know. I was just like, hey, you guys know more than I do. I don't know anything. I'm just like, tell me where to stand and what to do. And so that process of getting my center and my balance as a woman artist in a very male dominated world took probably well into my late 30s before I was really kind of getting like how to do that thing. And
Yes.
the first album didn't really do much, and I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated because I took it personally. I thought, I'm on a major label. I have a major producer. He just produced Bob Dylan, and now he's producing me. So it's obviously on me that it's not been successful because my phone's not ringing, and I don't have a manager. And I went back to Mobile, Alabama, and I thought, what do I do now? And disco hit the same week my album came out, really. And I had done a kind of Carole King singer, songwriter, sensitive, beautiful record. And I just thought, they hate me. They hate me. So I was, newly married, and I went home and licked my wounds. And my husband was like, it's not your fault. I'm like, yes, it is. I must not have what it takes. And I lost 100% of my confidence in myself as a creative person. And in a way, it was like the baptism of fire of like, just burn it all down. And I still had to work. I still had to sing in bars around Mobile,
Mm.
and I played covers. I refused to sing my own songs for about a year. I was so demolished by this lack of success that I expected to happen because everything else had happened so quickly and just like bing, 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 bing.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that even if I'd had all the bells and whistles in place, that Donna Summer was happening that week, not the kind of thing I was putting out. And I had these great reviews
Oh,
in Billboard magazine saying, this is a brilliant record. Too bad she didn't put it out 5 years ago. And but I didn't hear any
oh.
of that. I just thought, I suck. They know I suck, and I'm not doing this anymore. It's too painful. So fast forward a couple of years, I went ahead and I had my son Ernest, who's now 40. I had a baby, and I totally refused to write songs. I was still working, singing in little bars to bring in some money, but my husband was just kind of waiting to see how he was going to get me restarted as a songwriter. And I was like, nah, nah, they had their chance. They didn't want me. So no. So all my energy went into making paintings and baby toys and baby mobiles. And then I started getting into sculpting Play-Doh heads. That was really crazy. And I had all these creepy Play-Doh heads all over the house in various forms of disintegration. And my husband was like, oh man, I got to get her back to work. And we went to see Coal Miner's Daughter, which is this movie about Loretta Lynn and her whole, rise to stardom and her whole life. And I remember sitting in that movie theater, and of course there was a part of me that was aching to be a songwriter again, but couldn't get out of the box that I put it in and locked very, tightly. And I remember this scene where she's digging up vegetables and she is writing a song at the same time, and she's got like three kids climbing on top of her. And I realized, I think I'm just being a baby about this thing. I think I need to get off my butt and start writing songs again. If she can do that, she's dirt poor. She's writing a song that would later be a hit, and she's got three kids climbing all. I just have one kid. So anyway, it got me back to work, and then we moved to Nashville, and the rest is 20 years worth of history. But it was that was a big thing, and she was such a powerful woman, which, you'd think when we do things as women that are powerful, it affects other women. It reverberates for a long, long time, keeps reverberating.
Yes. That's so incredible. I'm going to have to check out this film
Oh, you'll
because,
love it. You'll love it.
oh, I can't
It's
wait.
great.
Also, Beth, I've just seen that Charlie Webb has joined us here on Instagram as well.
Charlie!
Yay! Hi, Charlie. That's so interesting to hear about your experiences walking into the studio and thinking, oh, they've been in the business a long
They know,
time. They
yeah,
must know better about my creativity.
yeah,
I relate to that. I went through that. I was in the studio I was 23, Pino Palladino, Steve Gadd, Steve
yeah,
Lips producing. Uh, I thought, this feels like it needs to go in this direction, but they think it's that direction, so they must be right
right,
about
right,
me.
yeah. And
Um,
then there's also this technical thing where it was so important to have me sing and play separately. But when we cut the tracks, I was just in a vocal booth with my guitar and my voice, and we sang, and I sang great, and I played with the band, and it
yeah,
felt totally natural. And then I came back after the break, and Barry wanted me to re-sing it without playing the guitar and replay the guitar without singing it, which sounded awful because it wasn't my natural habitat. And I didn't
yeah,
know enough at the time to say, no, I think it's much better this way. We're just going to do it this way. Now I would say that. I've
now,
said
yeah,
that to many artists, like, go with what's comfortable. And your
yes.
guitar and your voice are going to end up on the record anyway. So what difference if you play it at the same time? It's going to feel more natural.
I've had some of these discussions with different sound engineers because I know that they love to have separation between the voice and the harp. Because for me, because if my harp's on the voice mic and my voice is on the harp mic, that took a lot of brain power just doing that switch for some reason. then then you've got this kind of crosstalk
Yeah.
double whammy thing going on. So people in sound world don't like that when it's at the same time as much as when it's separate. When I was working with Marcel van Limbeek, he said he designed this amazing thing for Tori Amos where when she would play her piano, she would put her hands into a separate space. She could see them, but there was a separation between the actual rest of the piano that was being mic'd up and her
Right.
voice.
Yeah,
Um,
there's some great tricks to get around it. I know
yeah,
I've worked with Frank Filippetti, who recorded a lot of albums with James Taylor, and he built him a box, and they're kind of a plexiglass. You could still see his hands, and so there's
wow.
reasons to do it, but not at the expense of the performance. But and the main
No,
thing is finding my own voice really, and then I kind of overcorrected. I went to Warner Brothers Records, and I was produced by a bunch of different people, including the fabulous Roscoe Beck, who produced your new record. Poor Roscoe. He had me when I was still overcorrecting in the opposite direction, and I was like, "No, it's my idea." It's like he had to be a therapist, part-time therapist, and part-time producer with me.
Oh, I love that record. I was listening this morning.
Yeah,
It's
it's
extraordinary.
amazing. It's amazing. And, I had to learn how to get out of my own way. I had to learn how to stay in my center and also listen to other people have an idea. So, I kind of
Right,
overcorrected for a while, like, okay, that didn't go. So now I'm going to be in charge and I'm going to, and make sure nobody takes my power away. And then you can overcorrect in that direction too.
right,
Because if you don't collaborate and start to hear other people's ideas and realize maybe they have a better idea, without
right.
losing your own sense of, okay, I've heard the idea and I think it's a better idea. I'm going to go with their idea. Or I've heard their idea and I think I'm going to stick with my original idea. That's one of the most critical kind of adulting things that I think we have to sort of work our way into as grown-up artists, especially female
Yes.
artists.
Especially female artists, because I think it comes down to even at school, sometimes the boys get to go first, or the boys are just brash enough to go, I'm going to do it anyway, even if it's not great. And I did a workshop in a school recently where the girls didn't want to go first in case they made a mistake, but the boys didn't seem to care if they made a mistake. And I was
Yep.
thinking to myself, is this genetic or is this some kind of nurture or is it a combination of both? What do
Right.
you think?
I think it's just each of us having to let go of, I mean, like, first of all, to recognize that that's happened and then go, oh, I don't have to assume anything.
Yeah,
Sometimes we have a better idea and sometimes we don't. It's really
yeah,
that flexibility and being able to stay in your center allows you to be flexible. When you can't stay in your
yes,
center and when you fall off that into this thing about when you start feeling this helplessness, like, I don't know the answer. Sometimes we don't know the answer, but you can say,
yeah,
I don't know the answer. I'm going to talk to some other people. There's a big difference between I don't know the answer in that voice and the I don't know the answer. Oh my God, I'm going to die. So we are
yeah,
all kind of on that journey, I think, as women, finding our way through that. Young mothers, Charlie will recognize this thing.
yes,
You have a new baby. There's a lot of advice and books and things you can read and, friends that'll tell you every which way to do it. And then ultimately, you just find your rhythm with your baby. You find your rhythm, and that's your way of doing it, and that's the perfect way. But it incorporates taking information from a lot of different places, and I think
right.
that's that flexibility of being able to hear options and then decide what's best for you. I mean, it
Wow.
sounds so simple, doesn't it? But women really
Sounds
struggle
really
with that.
simple.
We lose that very early on, I think.
And is that from people pleasing? Is it from survival to be lovable as a baby, as a young child? Is it,
I think it
what's your,
manifests in so many different ways, depending on the kid and the situation. Some of us turn to people pleasing, and some of us turn to other methods of surviving through and getting what we need.
yeah,
It's really just part of growing up and realizing what our voice is and how to use it.
I love that. I love that. I might need to call you up every so often when I'm having a moment that I've
Oh,
forgotten
you can
this.
always call me up.
I'll
So
just
I want to play a
dial a bell.
song. I want to play a song that I wrote with Kev Mo and John Lewis Parker, and it's a song.
Great.
I got this phone call. I had just come off of a UK tour, and I remember coming home and I had terrible laryngitis, and I was just standing in the kitchen telling my husband Bob, "I'm gonna go lay down because I'm just like I can't. I gotta rest." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, you go lay down and rest." And phone rings and it's Kev, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing." And he goes, "Well, can you come over here right now?" I'm like, "Yes," because Kev Mo, it's like he wants me to help him finish a song. I'm like, I'm totally there. So my
Wow.
husband said, "What part of I'm gonna go rest was that?" And I was like, "Well, I'm sorry, I gotta go." So I went over there, and they were right. He said, "We're writing this song. We need a woman's perspective because
Yeah,
it's a song about." Well, you'll see. So, and he cut a
I
really
love
cool
it.
version of this song, but I think it's perfect for what we're talking about, the
Great.
timeliness. And I've just recorded it for my new record that's coming out this year, and
Yeah.
And when I do perform it live, I tell people it's not a political song, it's a
Mm.
humanitarian song. So
Love that.
big
Love
difference.
that. While you're starting, I'm gonna grab something because we've got a little bit of an echo apparently on the
Okay.
Facebook. So I'm gonna grab something to dampen.
Okay.
You start. I'm coming right
All right.
back.
I'll just do a long intro,
Please.
or this will have a cool echo. Actually, I can do this. Da da da. There. Now we have a little. Hey, Jeff Cohen.
Woo!
Way back when, in the beginning of time, man made the fire, then the wheel went from a horse to an automobile. He said the world is mine. He took the oceans and the skies. He changed the borders, built the walls. He won't stop till he owns it all. Here we are, standing on the brink of disaster. Enough is enough is enough is enough. I know the answer. Put a woman in charge. Put a woman in charge. Put a woman in charge.
Woman in charge.
Yeah. Put a woman in charge.
Put a woman in charge.
Time has come. We've got to turn this world around. Call the mothers. Call the daughters. We need the sisters of mercy now. She'll be a hero, not a fool. She got the power to change the rules. She got something men don't have. She's kind and she understands. Let the ladies do what they were born to do. Raise the vibration. Make a better place for me and you. Put a woman in charge.
Put a woman in charge.
Put a woman in charge.
Woman in charge.
Put a 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 woman in charge.
Hallelujah. Gonna be some magic when the
Amen.
girls take over. It's gonna be fantastic. Whoa. That was so a lovely brilliant. Delayed harmony.
It just popped out of me. I love that song. And I love your singing and playing. You sound so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
It felt like it fit the conversation. Definitely.
I love it. So as you might know, we're having these discussions leading up to International Women's Day, and Beth is truly a flag flyer for all women, and particularly women artists, creators. Can I ask you, Beth, what changes in creative industries or in any workplace would you like to see happening for women and girls?
Well, I think that there's huge discrepancies in terms of our our being in the world as humans in terms of, I mean, there's just certain roles, like it's super important to be a mother, it's super important to be a father. And
Yeah.
then there's the workplace, and how there just needs to be so much more support for working mothers
Yeah.
that would include working fathers, because it would, what's best for the mother is also best for the family, is also best for the child. So I know in our
Right.
country we have abysmal childcare. I think that's probably the number one thing, is to be able to raise a child and get the support that you need, and to do that and still fulfill all of the talents that you have in the world of whatever your work is.
Of course.
But if you have the right support, then your child can flourish, and you can feel good about your work, and you can feel good about your child and how well they're doing. And that's just a huge gap. I think I mean, it's socioeconomically gets worse depending on where you are on the food chain of that.
Mhm.
But I think it just needs to be something that's across the board, globally understood, and shifted towards supporting um, child raising, really, for
Child
both
raising.
parents. But it
Right.
particularly falls on the mother.
And could you share how you think technically that could work? Does that mean that childcare is incorporated more as a free offering to mothers? What in what ways would that
I think that,
happen?
in America, I think it would have to be legislated so that you
Yeah.
can't, like you would have to provide some kind of either financial support. Like now they're working on just getting maternity leave. I mean, there's lots of different countries that do it so much better. Like I think Sweden and other places like that might have much more family oriented support when you have a
Mm.
child and you need to take some time off to be with your family, both the father and the mother. This makes for good humans. This makes for raising really fantastic humans when they're brought up into a place that's supportive and loving, and the parents are getting enough gas in their tanks to do their job as parents. So it's
Right.
fundamental to me. I don't know how to. I mean, I couldn't tell you how to do it. I think it's for America. It's going to be a legislation kind of thing, so that if
Right.
you have a company of a certain size, part of what you're budgeting for is providing the support for people who are in their childbearing years, who are creating the next generation. Big job. We all kind of have to. I think we have to take some responsibility, kind of collectively, and that's not really happening. Especially, I know it's not happening much in America. And I remember,
Mhm.
moving to Nashville with my 5-year-old son, my husband, who had run a huge treatment program for adolescents in Mobile, Alabama, which was a full-time job. He had founded it,
Mhm.
and it was flourishing. And we picked up and moved to Nashville, and he got a job, doing something that was like part time so that he could be Mr. Mom. And that was
Wow.
so that we could pursue. Now, that's very, I'll never, forget that. I mean, I'll be forever grateful for that. And he didn't think of it as a sacrifice, because he was like, you have to do this. You are a star. Like, he was like almost driving me nuts with that stuff, like when I wasn't quite ready. He's like, no, we're getting your ass to Nashville and we're doing this, and I'm like, okay, all right. Well, after the Loretta Lynn movie, he became my do. I used to
Ah,
call him do when I'd get mad. But part of, that support system, and then moving to Nashville, he eventually found his way and got some better job opportunities, but he took a big dip in salary and everything else to go into the supportive role. And then as I started to have some hits, he started to take some courses in publishing, and he decided, I'm going to become your publisher, and this is our family business, and you're going to just have me working full time. And all of that was just something that's so rare, that I had that opportunity. And unfortunately, he got cancer and died a couple of years later. So that totally turned my world upside down. And
ah,
again, my family and my friends supported me. And I had this 14-year-old, 13-year-old boy who was really having a hard time because he lost his dad. And I remember I was just putting my second album out on Warner Brothers, and I was just telling him, I don't know if I can tour, and
right.
it was just this whole. I mean, I'd have to go back. It's like the TV movie would be amazing on my life.
Oh, come on. Who would
But
play you, Beth? Who would play
I have
you?
no idea. Maybe I have to get you to do it. But
Oh
but
gosh.
this amazing course of my life, I've been threatening to write a book of memoir, and I'm kind of gathering stuff as I go. But looking back on it, the biggest important thing to me was to always be able to be there for my son. And so there were tours I didn't go on and things I didn't do after Ernest died. I did what I could, but it was my priority. It's like I just can't be gone for 9 months out of the year. That's not an
No.
option. So, and I don't regret that at all, and I feel very fortunate that I've been able to make my living as a songwriter and an artist, which is not something that's easy to do. And
Mm.
I think that, I'm very grateful for that. But I do feel like, in this world of all these different ways that women are working, that job of child raising is something that's not even valued as the
Right.
hardest work I ever did and the most creative work I ever did and the most soul challenging work I've ever done is
Yes.
raising my son.
It's very interesting, this idea of status in a community. And I don't know why mothers sometimes
Mm,
feel like they have a lower status if they're not doing a job, because they are really the very highest of the status. And I've
yeah.
witnessed several of my friends who've been mothers focusing on motherhood and therefore not been in the workplace as such, but they're working full time. Let's remember,
Right.
24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And then going back into work, how
Yeah.
challenging that's been, and to feel confident. Um, it As a non-mother currently myself, I'm like, you go, girl, you got this, you can do this. But then I don't think anyone can quite know what that experience is like until you are a mother and you're in those shoes.
Yeah.
So it's really wonderful to hear you talking about this and bringing these issues to light, because it is a big issue in our society and in our community that
And even
there
just
needs to
and even
be.
just focusing in on the writing life. Let's say you're a songwriter, which you are,
Mm,
and Charlie, I'm sure, had a version of this when she had her child, and then I think she's had two kids now, right? She's had two. So
yeah.
that's a whole world. I didn't even get up to that. I just had one.
She's a Wonder Woman in all departments, Charlie
Well, my
Webb.
my son now has two, so I'm getting to live vicariously through their lives. My daughter-in-law Jessie is just an amazing mother, and Ernest is an amazing father. And during this last year, it's just been on a whole other level. I mean, parents all across the board should get medals for this past year. But in any
Oh,
case, in relationship, one thing I can speak to is that my relationship to songwriting. I was coming off of feeling totally rejected on my first album, and I was trying to lick my wounds and get back into the flow. But even if I hadn't had that happen, just having a baby, develop and come through my body, and now it's on the outside, and I've got all this stuff. You got full-time baby stuff. I thought I'd never write again. And then now as I look back on it, the couple of years that I didn't write a lot during the time he was very, very young are the most growth that I ever had as a songwriter. So when something knocks you flat, it doesn't have to be motherhood. It can be any number of things. If you go through a lull in your writing and you think, I've lost the plot, I'm never going to be able to, how did I used to do that? When I've gone through periods of time where there's just not a lot of creative energy that's coming forth, and I feel like I forgot how to write. I
yeah.
always try to encourage people when they're in that to understand you're actually knitting new pathways in your soul and your life, and you're dealing with stuff in your life right now. You can't stop everything and just go write a song. But I
No.
promise you, if you take care of yourself, you're going to get less involved in that. You're going to have this in the wake of that. You're going to have a lot to say you wouldn't have had to say otherwise. That's going to be really powerful if you can just maintain your survival mode. Sometimes we just have to survive
Yes.
what we're doing in the moment and
Yeah.
know that your creative life is absolutely not going anywhere. Your
No.
creativity, I don't think of creativity as this thing you either have or you don't. I think of creativity as literally the air that we are all breathing. It's all around
Breathing.
us all the time. And sometimes we have a capacity to breathe in and really use it, and other times we're not using it because we're busy doing other things and we can't deal with it. So
Of
it's
course.
the air doesn't leave just because you're not getting good oxygen supply. You're just not using the air in that moment. So I try to define it as this thing that's just waiting to gain purchase through us when we're open to having it come
Mm.
through. And if it's not coming through, usually the door is locked on the inside for some reason. Sometimes it's a protective measure that your psyche just has to do because you got to change those diapers and you got to get to the store and you got to figure dinner out and you got to, deal with whatever pandemic, whatever
Pandemic. Yeah.
big relationship shifts or whatever's getting all your attention at the time. But all those
Yeah.
things that we go through in life, they're actually the most deepening experiences. Like when I didn't write for 3 years and I didn't go around thinking I was a songwriter 24/7. I thought I was just back to being a human. I grew so much because I wasn't so
Yeah.
self-important about I'm got to be a songwriter. I was like, I'm not writing anymore. I'm just going to sing in bars and raise my kid, and I'm just going to learn how to make the best French bread ever. That's my goal. And that
I would definitely like to eat some of that.
I had to quit because I was going woo. I'm going way up the pounds, but
Oh,
but that journey that we're on, even when it's not looking like we're getting anywhere, we're really doing some miles.
we're really doing some miles. I
Yeah.
always liken it to the analogy you might not be growing the flowers in winter, but the winter season feeds into the spring, which feeds into the summer. And then
Yep.
you have the beautiful autumn where you have to let go of things. And it's not a continual output because if you're always breathing out and you're not breathing in, then you're not in flow. So when I am in a time of creative stagnation, maybe I'd like to call it, I try and remind myself perhaps I'm just turning the soil right now. Perhaps I'm by the fire right now, keeping warm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's really interesting to hear you talk about this because not many of the people I've spoken to are mothers looking after families, and this weekend that's going to be changing. And so I really wanted to ask you about these dynamics of balancing work life and family life because you seem to do it with so much joy and ease, and you're so flexible in the moment. It's delightful to see. Some of us over here struggle with balancing these elements. What are some of the things you live by or you say to yourself or that are important to you about prioritizing your personal needs and other people's needs and, of course, supporting your family, who I know are very, very special to you, and, of course, your very powerful creative life? Can you give us some tips or share anything about your experience?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm a breast cancer survivor. And my
Yes.
first husband, of course, died of cancer. And then 6 years later, it shocked me that I could get breast cancer. I thought, first of all, I've just been through this whole thing. Why would I be up for another disaster? I had this kind of like, what?
Yes.
That's got to be a mistake. And then
Yeah.
going through breast cancer for that year and a half, I went through lots of chemo and some radiation. And I was about to put a record out, and I had to wait a year and a half before I could put the record out. And I want the one thing I really, had to learn to do was accept a lot of, well, I mean, I had to learn how to stop taking care of everybody else first and start taking care
Right.
of myself first. It forced me to do that. And there's a
Yeah.
reason that they say if your plane is going down, put the oxygen mask on your own face and then your babies, your children's,
Right.
because you're no good to anyone if you're not there because you've not taking care of yourself. So taking
Mm.
care of oneself, I think, is really a big lesson. I think most of the women I've talked to or who are breast cancer survivors would tell me, yep, that was me. I was running around trying to fix everything and do everything for everybody. And I think, we have to create a sort of a healthy boundary with, I mean, I want to be there for the people I love, beyond what I can. And the other thing I have to understand and really make my peace with is when I can't do everything for everyone. I have several friends I'd like to be hanging out with who are going through a lot of stuff right now. I'd like to be
Yeah.
in LA, I'd like to be in New York. I'd like to be close to these people that I love so dearly, and I feel I have to take the sense of, oh, I'm letting them down. I've got to just
Yes.
remove that language from my mind because I'm not letting them down. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm loving them in the best way that I can after making sure that I'm taking care and loving myself. And that just sounds really selfish in one way, but it's really not. It's actually selfless. It's taking care of yourself.
Mm.
And then
Yes,
you have less of a chance that you're going to not be there anymore. You know, they
that makes a lot of
it's a
sense.
balance. It's a really important balance.
Yes.
And it's
I'm
hard to
not
find.
sure. It is hard to find, and it's not always easy to put it into practice, the idea of saying, thank you so much, but no, I need to, because somehow no has a connotation of negativity. But actually, perhaps if you're saying no, you're
Hmm.
saying yes to something that is more present for you, and therefore you're showing up more fully for the places you are showing up. And then it might come around that you can say yes and show up fully where you said no. It's
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely.
this idea of self-care is so important, and I'm not sure where it got a tiny bit of a bad rep in places, but I sometimes leave things for myself as a little present. When I was on the road, I'd fold my pajamas, and for some reason, getting back to the hotel room after a gig and seeing my pajamas folded there really made me
Tiny
happy.
little
It's
thing. Yeah, it's the tiny
so
little thing.
silly. But it was
Yeah.
like, oh, someone cares about me. Hang on, it's me. um,
Yeah.
just double checking. We had a little bit of an echo. Let us know, friends, on Facebook or on other platforms if that's gone away. So, Beth, I'd love to read you something. Rage on rage. First, she
Ah,
gets angry. Then she gets sad. Then she's decided it wasn't so bad. Forgives him just this once more. This song, Rage on Rage, has been blowing my mind. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired it
yeah,
and how it
absolutely.
unfolded for you?
That song was inspired by stories that I heard when I was growing up, when I got to a certain age, and my mom would tell me about the difficulty that her mother had um, in a marriage with her dad, and he was a beautiful, wonderful person, but when he would drink, he would become a different person, and
Right.
um, there would be these big fights and terrifying things that would happen. My mom would be like 11 with her two younger brothers, and there would be this sort of a circular thing with it where it would be like, okay, that's it, we're breaking up, and then somehow it would sort of end up, he'd come back and he'd apologize and he'd really, really try and he would clean up. And it's a classic kind of cyclical alcohol kind of circle that a lot of women go through. And I never really remembered. It's like this seed that was planted in the back of my mind. And when I wrote that song, first she gets angry, then she gets sad, then she's decided it wasn't so bad. This is the last time, this time he swore. She forgives him just this once more. And
Mm,
it's where you just go, okay, that absolutely can't happen again. And then you go, okay, it looks like it's not going to happen again. And then it happens again.
yeah.
And and then I felt like I didn't want it to be a song that just said this person's bad and this person's good, because it's way more complex than that. You know, he was a
Yes.
wonderful person that had a terrible problem. And so there's this bridge. It says, oh, my sweet one, what have I done? Turn back the page and see all that was done to me. So there's a
Mm,
kind of, usually if there's someone who's hurting someone, they're bringing a history of having been hurt into that. Not to say that that makes it okay, but it's just is part of the picture, you know. And that when she finally said that's it, that that decision that she made to end the marriage was an important one, and probably made my mother's life and her brother's life much better, you know, and actually
mm,
over the years helped him to get help, which he wouldn't have gotten if he hadn't been like, you know. So that even when you make the toughest decision and you say, that's it, I'm not doing this anymore, then it drops that other person off at, so what are you going to do now, you know. And it's a real reality check for people that are kind of caught in that circular thing. So when
yeah.
I wrote that song, I wasn't thinking about any of that. I wrote the vowels first. I wrote it from the melody. That song formed itself through something very deep in my soul And I just
Mm.
wanted to capture the longing and the sadness and the and the strength of that powerful circle thing that pulls people in. It's like a vortex. And
Yes.
I remember having somebody wrote me a letter one time and said, I think this song is terrible because at the end it looks like she takes him back. Because the very last verse, and to me it was a moment in time before she actually finally ended it. It was one of those circular things. At the end of the song, it says, she hangs the pictures back into place. She cleans up, she puts the pictures back that got messed up because of the big fight and everything, and she's gonna sort of pat the surface and go, okay, let's see if we can do this again and not have that happen again. And of course, the haunting thing about the song is it's very likely going to happen again. So the person that was writing me this email was saying, I think it's terrible. You should have made it clear that she was going to leave the relationship. And I said, but it's this moment in time where she doesn't, which happens and is a true thing and happens over and over again.
Yes.
So again, I don't ever want my songs to try to think they're trying to save the world in any way. I'm just learning about how to process something myself in writing them. So I
Mm.
wasn't really trying to do anything with that song. And I think one of the things that has been an effect it's had on people is just creating an awareness that this is
Yeah.
an amazing, powerful, circular thing that, should be looked at, But again, I
Yes.
don't set out to make anybody see anything. So that's cool that you resonated with it.
I love that song and the 6/8 feel and the the production as well. The instrumentation is just so haunting and powerful. It's extraordinary.
So I don't know which version you're talking about because I put it on my album called Hearts of Glass, which came out in
Yes.
2018. Is that the version?
Yes. That's
Okay.
the version.
All
Yeah.
right. So we moved it to guitar. I worked with Sam Ashworth, who produced that record, and uh, and there's a earlier version from 1991 that you should listen to. That's on my second album on Warner Brothers. That's the London Chamber Orchestra and the Boys Choir. We did it at Abbey Road, and it's a
Ah,
completely different, big kind of early '90s big production, totally different reading of the song, which I love too. But I mean, they're
wow.
both very different. One is super intimate. The newer one is very intimate and really powerful. I
Wow.
mean, it was interesting because when I did that record with Sam, I
Mm.
kind of said to myself, I'm going to move out of the way and have an actual producer actually produce me. And I'm going to step
Mm.
back and not get all up in their face. And I was really happy with how that record came out. I learned a lot about somebody else having a fantastic idea. And I worked the least that I've ever worked making
What
making
a
a record.
relief.
I know, it's like I don't
Totally.
have to figure all that stuff out. Sam Ashworth, by the way, has gone on to be one of the great, most incredibly successful songwriters. He and his wife Ruby Amanfu are both. You must know Ruby Amanfu.
No.
Great, brilliant artist and songwriter. They
Oh,
wrote with her. They wrote "Hard Place" with her. That artist called her,
okay.
and they've won
Yes.
Grammys. And he just won a golden. I think he's been nominated for a Golden Globe. Probably nominated for an Oscar. Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow. I love to hear of these stories because it really lifts me up to hear of someone who's devoted to their work, to their craft, to their passions, and they're
Yeah.
being supported. It's wonderful.
Well, Sam comes by it. Honestly, he was the son of Charlie Peacock, who did all those fantastic records, and he's a great artist as well. He did the Civil Wars records and just tons of other stuff. Yeah. So,
Wonderful. I love those albums.
so I
Um,
want to ask you a question. So you must
oh
be
yeah.
missing Leonard Cohen so much. I mean, I can only imagine what a fantastic, magical journey that was with him.
It was entirely breathtaking. It was a steep learning curve. It was enriching to the core. It was challenging to the cockles. It was all of things. It was
Yeah.
the best of times. It was the worst of times
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, to quote our friend Dickens, because it was so deep and so powerful, and yet there were times where it was a very intense journey. And I remember once on the plane, Leonard would always sit in the exit row seat. I don't know why, he loved it there, the space. And one day I'd been having a hard time on the road with some anxiety on stage, and he was so sweet about it always. He would send me little emails and what's happening with you, darling, and things like that. And then and one day I went and sat in the footwell of the exit row seat, and he looked at me and he nodded, and I nodded at him, and he said, you know, darling, when the triangle reaches up, it has to widen its base.
Ooh,
Yeah.
very good.
And that really hit me. And
That's
it's
a
something
brilliant thing.
it's a brilliant thing. And I've often thought about things in threes that are grounded, that are able to support. It really gave me a whole new concept about life, because I think I'd been playing really fast, running fast for so long, and reaching up into this new space, but perhaps not aware of being rooted or grounded enough. And I thought I was fine, and then it was almost overnight that I started to get anxiety on stage, and I passed out a couple of times on stage. It was really, really challenging because my earth kind of shifted on its axis. And if I had not been on tour, perhaps it might not have happened, but then I might not have done the work to rebalance and to make my triangle that more grounded. It was very difficult. And I used to hear of artists struggling on the road, and I think, what are you struggling for? You've got a job, you've got a community, you've got passions, but it comes back to that self-care thing again, I think, Beth, that you so astutely discussed, that you really do have to be aware of your own psyche, your body, nurturing yourself so that you can give out a lot. Because if you don't start from that place, then the well runs dry at a certain point, and then it's
absolutely. And
really
anxiety,
hard.
I mean, anxiety where you have a physical anxious reaction and then it sets in, these wheels go into automatic pilot, and pretty soon you're just, you feel out of control, and it's a terrible feeling. And even that, if you can step outside of yourself and see the Hattie in an anxious moment, then you've got the control back. You're like, okay, she's gone that way, so we're going to just calm down. We're going to breathe. I mean, all those things that you can learn to do to regain that center is a big learning curve. But I mean, that must have been so difficult to have that happen in front of thousands of people and not know what was going on. That must have been terrifying.
It was pretty hard the first night it happened, because it just hit me like a ton of bricks at the beginning of the show, and I'd been trying to get some tickets for my family to bring in some friends to the show. So I'd ran to the other side of the venue about half an hour before stage. So it was that people-pleasing problem of
Oh,
mine.
yeah. Your body was
And
going, this isn't going to be okay with us
it
anymore.
was going,
Not doing
no
it.
thanks.
Not doing it. Not doing it.
And I just really wanted to make my family proud of me and my friends feel supported. But by doing that, I actually just sacrificed myself. I made myself the sacrificial lamb. And I had to come to a point where I took responsibility more for myself. And it's still a journey, saying no, or saying I can't do something, or saying I have to set a boundary here. It's not easy for people that love you to hear that. But I'm learning in myself and with my own community as well, that when someone says how they feel, and it might not necessarily correlate with what I want or what I feel, that perhaps they're actually caring for both of us, because they're being authentic. They're being real with me. They trust me with their opinion, with their feelings. So it's a journey. It's a journey. And I learned so much from Leonard, and he was so supportive and kind throughout that whole time, and showed up for me.
Well, I remember long before you and your sister became the Webb sisters on tour with Leonard Cohen, I was aware of you, and I remember Roscoe Beck calling me, and he was putting out some feelers. This is way before Leonard toured. He said Leonard's going to come out and he's going to tour, and your name has come up because we're looking, for great background singer, kind of all around musicians. And I was like, I mean, I had just finished a record. And I had a tour booked and all this other stuff. And this part of me went, I want to run away and join the circus. Totally. Yeah, totally. And I wanted to say yes. And then I realized, like, halfway through my thought, I thought, no, I couldn't, because he needed like a year and a half commitment of
Yeah.
this was going to be a big thing. And I remember just going, how can I say no? And it's like, but I can't say yes, because then I would have had to undo so many things. And I just remember thinking, and then I think I mentioned you guys to him. I don't know. I think more than me mentioned you guys to him, but I like to claim that I had a little something to do with you guys getting the job. It's like, oh, these girls are.
Oh, well, thank you
First of
so
all,
much.
they're gorgeous and they're amazing musicians, and there's two of them.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
unique, and yet they're beautifully blended. And so I was so happy when I heard that you guys got the gig. That was so great.
Oh, thank you so much.
And
Well,
that's another thing about women. I think most of the women that I know are so supportive of other women. And there's this
yes,
kind of, I think, old wives' tale about, I know we are competitive as well, but we just root for each other in a way that I think is specific to women. And I really, I celebrate that. I
yes.
love, one of my dear friends, I'm happy to say, is Bonnie Raitt. And, one of the things we've loved to do a couple of times when we rarely get together is just kind of sit there and try to tell each other about, what about, have you heard of this artist? Or well, how about this artist? And finding artists and sort of trying to one up each other. And one of the things I love about Bonnie, and I think this is true also for Elton, is this incredible curiosity and passion for talent, and always interested in finding out more about it. She'll say, but I didn't know about this one. Why didn't you tell me about him? Oh, I thought you already knew. Just that beautiful sort of camaraderie and true happiness she feels when she finds another brilliant artist, that's a woman out there making music. She's such
Yeah.
a champion of that. And I think we all need to be.
I love that. We all do need to be. And that's another one of the reasons why I really wanted to do these conversations this week, because
Yeah.
I love to connect with other women artists because I've learned so much from talking and listening, and also it enriches me to know that we're in a community together.
Yeah.
I always feel more at home, more invigorated, more alive in community than I do on my own. So this has been incredible, and so I'm so glad you're with us here today, because you really are a trailblazer for all women, Beth. It's amazing what you create. You are. You are. I was also listening to your album with Roscoe Beck today because I love it. And
Yeah.
there's two songs, Life Holds On and No System for Love, that I had on repeat. They're such great songs. Do you recall the unfolding of that writing process? Could you take us through a day in the life of writing a song with Beth Nielsen Chapman? I
Well,
know I'll say that, but first, I know that every song unfolds in a different way and there's no set formula, but I really would love to hear about those songs if it's okay.
well, when I perform Life Holds On, I like to mention that I started it in the third grade because I remember being on the playground, and there was a substitute teacher, and I was amazed to notice that there was a crack, and it was a concrete playground outside at school, and there was this one little spot where a little tree had cracked through the concrete and was growing up, like a little, it was just like that tall. And I just remember thinking that was the most amazing thing. And the teacher, the substitute teacher, came over and she said, that's a tiny little seed that got down in there, or that might have been under there, and she said that's how powerful life is. It will push through rock. And I remember
Mm,
just hearing that and going, wow. And then I started noticing that all around me as I grew up. And I wrote down this little line. Probably in the fifth grade, I wrote it down. It was basically, as long as the grass keeps growing through the pavement cracks, there will be a way, which is not a very musical way of putting it.
Wow.
So yeah,
Beautiful.
so then years later, I'm sitting there with my guitar. I'm like, let's see. I was swinging on the swings when I was a little girl, trying to get a handle on the big wide world. When I noticed all the grass and the cracks in the concrete, I said, where there's a will, there's a way around anything. Life holds on. Given the slightest chance, for the weak and the strong, life holds on. And I had that much for like a year. I just couldn't figure out what else can I say about
Wow.
it. And so I was vacuuming one day, and I had that like verse and chorus, and I loved it so much, and I just couldn't figure out where it went from there. And I was vacuuming one day, and I was watching kind of a documentary in the background, and the vacuum was really loud, and I'm just kind of looking over at the screen, and they show this little boy and these people just running and jumping because he fell to the bottom of a pool, and they discovered this little boy that was in the bottom of the pool. So of course I'm just like, I start noticing that, and I turn off the vacuum cleaner. I'm sitting on the coffee table like this close to the TV set, and I turn up the sound, and it was in real time. And it was like several minutes went by, and they're trying to get him to breathe, and they're doing all these things, and he's not breathing, and he's not breathing, and he's not breathing. And I thought, oh my God, it's like he's not going to make it. And then they cut. Then the film just cuts, and it doesn't even show when he started breathing. It just shows the next thing you see is this kid sitting in his father's lap with a blanket around him, drinking a Coca-Cola. Like 2 seconds later, he's like,
Oh.
and everybody's patting him on the back, and I thought, oh my God, that was so powerful and so riveting, and he's okay, but he didn't look like he was okay. So then I thought, there was a third grade boy that we knew in school. So then I brought this movie into my head, like he was found face down in a swimming pool. And as they worked on that kid, every minute was an hour. And when his eyes fluttered open, we could feel that power. Life holds on, given the slightest chance. And then the bridge was like, I knew it had to have a bridge. So it was like, siren. So when I was raised in a Catholic family, so every time you'd hear a siren, you'd have to say a Hail Mary every time for whoever's in there that's not you, and just be glad it's not you, and say a prayer for whoever's in there. So I, even to this day, I just, boom, it just happens automatically. So the bridge became like, sirens screaming down my street, fading as they go, whining somewhere far away to someone I don't know. Still I say a little prayer. There's always hope. Life holds on. And then the last verse was about raising kids and worrying about them. Through the window in the kitchen, I can see outside my kids taking turns coming down the slide, and I try not to worry as they grow a little every day. I just have to believe they're going to be okay, and that life holds on, given the slightest chance. And that's all we got. We don't have a
Wow.
guarantee. We just have that
Beth!
guarantee.
So good.
That's all we get.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Such a great song. I love it. Do you ever play it at your gigs
Oh,
these
yeah.
days?
I
You
do.
do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Great song.
I
Great,
see
great song.
Snapshot Mike just said, Catholic, my condolences. I'm a 12-year survivor.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
we all survive our spiritual inoculations, whatever they may be, from all different walks of life, I think. And the reason I did that album in 2007 called Prism is
Yes.
because I always resonated with so many different paths of faith. I'm an
Yeah.
honorary Jew to many of my friends that are, my husband's Jewish, my best friend's Jewish, and I'm like an honorary Jew. And I love Buddhism, and I love all these aspects of many spiritual paths. and I
Yeah.
wanted to do an album of songs where I use my voice kind of as a common thread,
Mm.
and that's just been something. I find music is one of those things that transcends all of those boxes that we put ourselves in,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
that's and some of the songs on your new album are so transcendent. I just have to plug it. I'm sorry. It's so beautiful. Um,
Oh,
I got to hear it early. Thank you, Roscoe, and you for sending it to me early. But those songs are so powerful and resonate on so many layers. I'm really excited that it's finally coming out. I can
thank you
brag on
so
you.
much. Thank you, Beth. I noticed in your song God is in, Goddess in, you also talk about religion. I really loved the way you you talk so honestly about your different experiences with spirituality, and there's so many cool samples and loops. Are there children's voices in that song as well?
Oh gosh, I'm sure there is, and I have to say the main writer of that lyric is Billy. I'm gonna blank on his name. Billy. Oh, like thanks to chemo brain. Um, I'll find out. I'll post it. I'll get you to post it.
Yeah, let us
Uh,
know.
but look up God is in, and his name is Billy, and I'm just blanking on his last name because I'm trying to remember it. He wrote the
Yes.
main song. In fact, he wrote an amazing, many more verses to that song, and I fell in love with it.
Okay.
And I took several of those verses, and then Annie and I wrote a little bridge, and with his permission, and it was just such a. I think that song is so brilliant. What it says, God is in this, and God is in that, and God is in all these things. Yeah, that had to become the first song on the record because of that. Yeah.
So beautiful. I love it. And how about your hymns album? What was the seed that planted for that idea?
Well, I wanted to do a recording of all the old, beautiful, old, ancient Catholic hymns that I grew up listening to.
Yes.
I used to sort of, go to the choir practice, and I was between my mom and dad, and they were in the choir, and I remember just hearing the tones and the harmonics of beautiful old choir kind of music. Um,
Yeah.
and I was working on the Prism album, which was all like 9 different languages and all these different religious um, perspectives, and I realized I should just do a collection just for my mom and dad for Christmas, and I started recording them,
Right.
just all the voices, and I got my dad to sing bass, and I just did these little arrangements, and I learned to play Ave Verum on guitar, which is like nobody does that. And I just adapted them for my voice and the range of my voice. And what was fascinating is that I had no idea anybody would ever hear that record because I was just doing it for my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even do shop for a label. I just kind of thought I'll just put it out, so it'll be people can buy it. My mom will sell it, give it to all the nuns and priests, and then I ended up
Yeah.
on NPR doing an interview with Melissa Block, and honestly, they had such a huge response when they played little snippets of it. And the reason I
Mm.
think is because these are really beautiful songs that you mostly hear on albums that are recorded in these huge cathedrals where you can't even tell the sound of it's like really far away and echoey. And I just brought it right
Yes.
up to the mouth and it's more
Wow.
intimate. So uh, I sold like 50,000 CDs like within a couple of weeks, which was
Beth.
crazy. And I owned it. So it was like I'd never owned a record before. And it was like that funded me for a couple of years, because
Yeah.
usually when you do a record deal, you don't see a lot of what you get, for a long time. So I was
No.
working with what is now 30 Tigers, but at the time it was called Emergent. It was a marketing kind of distribution company. And now they're
Yes.
huge. They're like a label, and they do amazing things for independent artists. But Hims was an early thing that kind of helped that company kind of build for the idea of owning your own masters, which is a great thing if you can do it.
That is so cool. And that you're actually blazing a trail for artists to have this independence. It's incredible. It's really incredible.
Well, I kind of
Um,
fell into it, I've still, continued to own my masters, and it's
yeah.
our body of work.
Do you recommend to songwriters to try and own your masters if you can?
Well,
What's your
songwriters,
opinion?
actually, I mean, like artists, recording
Artists.
artists, I think it
Yeah.
depends on the situation. I think, I was on Warner Brothers for 10 years, which helped me get to a larger audience.
Yes.
But I could certainly see nowadays with the changes in the streaming and the math that's changed. And first of all, I think streaming is abysmally underpaying songwriters and artists, and I think it's
Yeah.
an atrocity, actually.
Hmm.
I'm hoping that we get that put more in balance as we go. And I know there's a lot of amazing organizations and songwriters that are actively pursuing getting that sorted. And if you can, it's important to be part of that, you know.
Yeah.
But that said, in the midst, if you're 20 something or you're just 30 something and you're making your record and you have an opportunity to collaborate with a label and they do a good job of supporting you and you work it out so that it's fair to you. I like licensing deals. I like
Yes.
giving someone 7 years, showing what you can do, and then I get it back unless you just sell millions of them, and then I'll automatically give you another 7 years. Like, show me what you
Yes.
can do, and then if you don't do anything, I'll take that back. Thank you very much. And give it to my
That
grandchildren.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Incentive working. So earlier on, I listed some of the artists, of the many artists, can't list them all, that have recorded and covered your songs. What's your process of getting a song to an artist or writing a song for an artist? Is there some magical, it just happened to fall into their lap on a magic day? Or do you work quite hard to have a song that you would think will specifically work for a specific artist? Can you share a little bit about that process for you?
Well, I've done it all those ways. I've been asked to write a song for an artist. Probably my
Mm.
biggest version of that was writing a song for Willie Nelson that ended up being a #1 hit for him. And I was given,
Woohoo!
yeah, I was given this, I know his music. I'd grown up listening to his music. I knew every one of his recordings. And so, when I was asked to write a song for Willie, I literally picked up my guitar and went like, on the road again. I got that in my head, and I made this song. It took me 3 months, and it was just this thing I centered around what he would say, how he would say it, but it still had to come from my own heart of emotional truth. So
Yes.
it still has to be, otherwise it sounds not like it doesn't become a great song unless you can write it from your center. But I became I sort of dressed myself up in my head as Willie and like, how would he say this?
Yeah.
Um, so sometimes I've been asked to write specifically for an artist, or somebody says so and so is looking for a song. I remember Bill Lloyd and I write a lot together, and I'd written a couple of songs that were hits for Trisha Yearwood, and I heard she was cutting again, so got together with Bill,
Ah,
and we were like, let's write a song for Trisha. Okay, that's great, and we worked on it all day, and it just didn't sound great. It sounded like an office song. It sounded like some people had gotten together to write a song for Trisha Yearwood, which is not a good thing. So
right.
at the end of the day, I was like, come on, Bill, let's just start tomorrow. Let's just start over tomorrow fresh, and let's not try to write a song for Trisha Yearwood. Let's just write a song, and maybe she'll cut it. Who knows? And so he's walking out my
Yeah.
door, and I was checking in with him because he was going through a rough time, going through a divorce. And I was friends with him and his wife, Laura. And it was hard, he's saying, oh, it's really hard. And, but through all this, I just keep trying to love her. And I'm like, yeah, Bill, come on back in the house. Come on. So I got Bill back in the house. I'm like, we're going to write Trying to Love You. So we wrote the song Trying to Love You from this
Oh,
true thing that he said when he was leaving my house after we did such a shit job of writing the song all day that we were trying to write for Trisha Yearwood. So we came back in the house and we wrote Trying to Love You, which is such a deep song of almost everybody I know, has gone through this kind of thing where you're trying to love someone, right? In fact, I have people come up to me when I perform that song, go, "That's our wedding song," and then somebody right behind them will go, "That's our divorce song," and
wow.
it's an equal opportunity because it's about just trying to love somebody no matter what. And
Yeah.
that's what happens when you get out of the way of trying to write a song for dot 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 fill in the blank. Anytime you're trying to consciously do something, you're not in the artistic opening of the vortex of creative flow. You can't be. You can just set the intention, but then you got to open up to that flow where you don't really know quite what you're going to say next, and you don't quite know where it's
Yeah.
going. And that's the address of creativity. When I
Yeah.
teach people in my workshops, they come thinking they want to know how to write a song. And by the end of it, I'm like, no, I'm not going to teach you how to write a song. I'm going to teach you how to get out of your way so a song will come through. That I can teach you, but I can't teach you how to write a song because I don't know how to write the next song. I only know how I wrote the last song. The next song's a whole new thing. It's never happened before, you know? And that
Yes.
precipice of not knowing what happens next is, by definition, creativity. And if you know what's going to happen next, then you're just repeating something you already know, which is not creativity, which is what happens when songwriters try to get together and think, let's construct a song that Trisha Yearwood will have a hit on based on what's already happened. It's like, not happening.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you
she
can't
cut
be
the
in.
song. She cut the song and it
She
was a
cut the
hit somewhere.
song.
Yeah. Trying to Love You. She cut that. So
Ah,
there you
it's
go.
beautiful. It's beautiful. It gave me goosebumps hearing that title.
Yeah.
Just you feel it. Everyone's been there. Well, I think almost everyone's been there where you've got to try and find a way to love someone in the most loving, and it's a journey
It is.
loving people
It's a never-ending
because
thing.
it's not only one way and it's not only one path. It's beautiful.
Do you want me to play you the song?
Go on.
Shall we do it?
Would
Because we're
love
here.
that.
And I
We're
love this
here.
song so much. No one's come as close. Let's see if I can remember how to play it. I blew out all my plans. The world fell in my hands. The day that I began trying to love you. The secrets I have kept, the nights I haven't slept, laughed until I've wept, trying to love you. Trying to love you. No one's come as close or gone so far. Trying to love you. I've lost and found myself in who you are. Trying to love you. So easy and so hard. Trying to love you. Watched myself get stuck. I've squandered all my luck. I've almost given up trying to love you. Trying to love you. It's broke my heart. It's chipped away my pride. Every time I see that fault line slide, I've watched the great divide, trying to love you. Trying to love you. It's broke mercy out. Let's see. Worn a million miles across the floor, trying to love you. I've worn a million miles across the floor, trying to love you. Still I could not ignore, trying to love you. It's pulled the best from me for all the world to see, and I will always be trying to love you.
Wow, what a song.
Kind of
Wow,
covers
Beth.
all the possible directions and gamuts of, of the love thing. And Bill Lloyd and I
How
wrote that together. He's such a great songwriter, a good friend. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
You
so if you're going
sound
through divorce, you
wonderful.
should just put it right in a song, you know?
And
That's what it's for.
actually, how powerful a song to hear just you and your guitar. It's the most powerful form of hearing this incredible
Yeah.
creativity. Thank you for sharing that. So beautiful. So I know we're coming to the end of our
I know
chapter
we've
with
been
you
really
here.
going a long time. I think we've gone past our hour.
Yay! I love it. I love it. If I may ask you a couple of closing questions, is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
okay?
I'll try to be brief.
Ah, um, can you talk about a day that you look back on with joy?
Oh man, there's so many.
The first one that comes to mind.
First one that comes to mind is the day that I gave birth to my son, who was 6.5 weeks early. So it was a little touch and go there. We weren't sure he was going to come through. And when I woke up
Wow.
from my emergency cesarean and they told me he was actually in the world, first of all, I told them, no, no, he can't be. And they're like, oh no, he's here. And
He's
yeah, that was an amazing thing to think he's here. Yeah.
wow. Yeah, he certainly is. And what a wonderful musician and artist and teacher and leader he is as well,
Yeah, he's
Ernest,
doing
isn't
great.
he?
He's
He's
amazing.
incredible. What is a recent favorite song, piece of music, or something creative that you keep coming back to?
Wow. A recent, you mean a song I just heard?
It could be a song you heard or that you wrote or that you love.
Well, it's going to sound really weird to say this. I've been working with Chris Difford now for several months because, in fact, I'm going to be on his show tomorrow. That's going to be happening. I'll send you a
Ah,
link. But he's
please.
been doing these wonderful Zooms, and he's one of the founding members of Squeeze. So I've been going through all these Squeeze songs, listening, trying to find one I can learn for tomorrow. And they're all really complicated. And I found a version of "Tempted" by Sting, who just recorded it in an Instagram feed. You can find it out there. And
Ah,
I just like took that song apart. And I know it's like 12 other people are going to already be singing that song, so I can't do that one. But it's just such a brilliant composition. It's like da 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 da. I can't even hum it back to you because it's so complex. Tempted by the fruit of another. So it's an older song, but I just fell in love with it again, and just my admiration for this piece of writing is just profound. So check that out.
wow.
Tempted by Squeeze. It's sung by Paul, not Paul Samuelson. Paul, Paul,
Paul.
who did the Living Years. Paul,
Yes. What a voice.
what a voice.
Oh, I love his voice.
And I'm blanking on his name because I'm trying to remember it. It's just terrible.
Paul.
I did
Yeah.
a duet with him on my second album. Paul Carrick.
Oh,
Thank God. Paul Carrick. Paul Carrick.
yes. Yes, yes. Incredible.
Just an
So,
amazing song.
oh, I love that song. It's a great, great song. What are you looking forward to coming after this COVID chapter?
Just hugging people. I think we're going to be major
Can I have
huggers.
a hug with you? You are such a
Totally.
great hugger.
All of England better brace themselves because
Uh,
Americans are coming over there to basically hug the crap out of you because
please
we need
do.
it. I'm really looking forward to getting back into the world. I'm coming over in October to do some touring and have a new record out. Pandemic permitting, I think we'll be okay by October. And yeah, I mean, it's this, even performing for three people in a room is going to be so great. Like we're really going to, I think for a long time, appreciate our physical um, being in the same space physically with other
Yes,
people. It's really been a big deal. And I
that
think
is
that's going to be like, I'm not going to be ever taking that for granted again. You know.
so true. So true. And if anyone wants to reach out to you or write to you, connect with you, what would be
Yes.
a way that people can find
You
you?
can email me directly at beth@bncsongs.com, like Beth Nielsen Chapman, BNC. And my workshops that I've been doing, vocal workshops and songwriting workshops, I have a place you can go called bncmasterclasses.com. Just go there and you'll see all what's coming up. And bethnielsenchapman.com, which is my website, uh, is there too. So, and if you join the mailing list, when I get ready to do my next song rodeo roundup, you'll get a
Woohoo!
notice and you can get a link to be in the Zoom with us. And or if we do it on Instagram Live, we'll show you how to send me a lyric and get on the list ahead of time. So we'll do some instantaneous song feedback.
I love that. I love that. Well, just to mention a few people who've been online with us tonight. Beth, we've had Anne, Denise, Frank, Pete, Alison, Anne, Frank,
Oh,
Phil.
hey
Thank you
guys.
so much, Jane, Louise. Just thanks so much for being with us, Kelly. It's just so cool to see you out there. And hasn't it been incredible listening to Beth, her music, her feelings, her opinions, her wisdom? So thank you so much to Beth Nielsen Chapman. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing this, Hattie. I've been loving watching all your conversations. I'm super honored to be among these women that you have been working with this week. So
Thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And stay in touch with Beth. Beth's new album. We don't have a date yet. Do
No,
we
but
have an idea? This
still
year?
do. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sometime
This
this year.
year. Okay. Can't
Yeah.
wait. So excited. Thank you again, Beth. It's
Bye
been
and
just
take
so
care of yourself.
wonderful.
Give my best to your family, to all your
Big
guys.
hug. Thank you. And to
Love
you
you.
and to your beautiful, beautiful grandkids.
Okay.
Big
Talk soon.
hug.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
I'm going to hit the little
Bye.
square now.
Thank you.
Leaving now.
Bye.